was waiting for y'all to calm down. My name is Asha, and I aim to make a change when I go back to my city. Trayvon Martin, Rashina McBride, Michael Brown. These 3 teens and countless other black youth, and just black people in general, have been murdered recently. And not just recently, this has been a trend that has been going on since probably about slavery. It's been able to go on for so long because our society justifies it. We live under systems of power where we have to marginalize certain amounts of people in order to keep the system running. POC people, or people of color, are marginalized and dehumanized. Because of this dehumanization, the murder, psychological torture, and rape of these people is justified. And despite the fact that a lot of people are murdered because of this, there are almost never any convictions about this. Whether it be a cop or a civilian doing the killing, there's never any repercussion. There have been many instances of protests within the black community over the past 3 years addressing the devaluation of black lives in our society and rallying around specific cases like the ones I just listed. But in every instance, society at large has created a strong backlash against these movements. Protesters are portrayed as violent and unhinged, while victims are described as shady or thug-like, and in media coverage. Meanwhile, offenders' actions are justified by things like the stand your ground law, which are institutional things within our legal system. I noticed that this sort of dehumanization through media also appeared in the case of Malaga Island. Malaga was a small island, a small interracial island community from the late 1700s to 1911. I did my history essay on this. It should be on the table there. The community went against the gender and racial norms of Victorian-era Maine, and that ended up generating an immense amount of negative rumors and stereotypes from mainlanders. Press sources spread all of these rumors around and stated them as facts to the public. Stories about incest, lineage from former escaped slaves and criminals, and stories about just the general immorality of the residents of Malaga spread like wildfire. There we go. And eventually neighboring towns started to turn their backs on Malaga. In 1911, Malaga residents were evicted from the state of Maine, and they were either forced into the Pineland Institute for the Feeble-Minded, which just further progressed the stereotype of genetic inferiority in the community, or they were forced to disperse into different countries where they would, or not countries, into different counties or towns where they would face an immense amount of discrimination. I realized that there was a major trend appearing. When communities go against the status quo, or a specific systemic process that aims to dismantle the community is set in place. I noticed that the first step was to make sure that the community is placed at an economic or resource disadvantage. Malaga was poor, so they weren't able to defend themselves very well against systemic pressures, either poverty or just general things like they need to be able to barter to get wood or other materials. And if people aren't willing to do that and they can't get it off of the island, then they're put at an immediate disadvantage. This also happens in lots of other communities where they're either poor, so they're discriminated against, or they can't access the materials they need, or, yeah, that's good. And the second thing is that community members are dehumanized, generally through the media. In the case of Malaga, there were a whole bunch of rumors spread about them. In the case of Ferguson, protesters are conveyed as violent, and only the people who are actively doing looting are portrayed in the media, while non-violent protesters are ignored. The third step is that the community is dismantled. It's either physically broken apart, or community members are forced to turn on each other, either due to economic manipulation or, again, rumors being spread within the community. And finally, I noticed that the last step to completely dismantling the community is that the community story is dismantled or devalued or falsified or just erased completely. But I also noticed a different trend. Whenever there's a successful social movement that occurs, there's always a really strong community behind it that's able to resist these attempts at systemic destruction. But now a new question forms. What makes a strong community? And I'm going to answer it using the context of CSG. You thought I wasn't going to talk about it. Okay. The first key to a strong community is mutual need or interest. This is what basically all communities are founded on, or are founded on. People come together because they either need social interaction, materials, or just knowledge to be passed to them. I came to CSG seeking knowledge and experiences, as did most of my peers and teachers here. We all have a shared passion in women's education, STEM, like science and engineering and math, or at the very, very least, interdisciplinary learning. This creates an immediate bond because we all have something in common, and it makes the community passionate, which is a key to having a strong community. When community members are passionate about something, they're more inclined to work to improve whatever goal is within their passion. In CSG, we were all really passionate about community, so everyone in the community worked really, really hard to make sure that it was a strong and healthy community. And on the individual level, teachers are super nerdy about what they love, and they happen to teach what they love. I remember the first day in Coastal Adventure, Anne and Liz passed out a full in-color printed syllabus for the entire first unit. My initial thought was, oh my god, these people are crazy. And then the second thought was, but they really love what they're doing, because they printed it in color. And the best thing about passion is that it's contagious. So if one community is really passionate, and they are passionate enough to spread it to other people, it can seep into society, and it can become a real thing. The second key part of community, which I already touched on a little bit, was emotional connection. So you get emotional connection when people like the same things you do, because you're like, hey, cool person. Good taste. I like Beyonce likes too. But there's another emotional connection where you hang out with these people, and whether it's a forced environment like a school, but nicely forced, or an actual environment like a friend group, you start to form bonds with these people because you realize that you have more commonalities than you thought you did. And you also have shared values, which leads to more investment. Again, this is exemplified by my CSG sisters and how we actually called for councils and like times where the community needed to talk together in order to fix problems. We were so invested that we were willing to go up against really awkward direct communication social situations in order to make sure everything ran smoothly. The next key to a strong community is diversity and intersectionality, just like our classes. So, again, passions, because this is really important. Diversity and passions. It's good in a community when everyone has a shared goal or value, but it's also amazing when people from different backgrounds come in and they show their own passions and their own ideas, because it enriches the community and it can also make other people passionate about those things, and then you have even more people to help you with your passion. You need diversity in order to broaden viewpoints and process ideas better and create understanding of others so you can have a better view of the world. It also has been scientifically proven to help solve problems more. I don't remember the specific study, but there was some type of business study where they were showing that racial and gender diversity in the workforce actually increases the productivity of the workforce. And because we're all extremely different, that might actually be why we're friends, at least in the case of CSG. Because our differences give us a really cool thing to talk about and expand on. Finally, this is super important, Kate's gonna snap. The final key is genuine communication. And also genuine interaction. So one reason that Malika was dismantled was because there wasn't really genuine communication going between Malika and the other neighboring towns like Phillipsburg. This is partially because of the already set in place stereotypes around Malika, but there wasn't any communication to try to disprove that. It was just facts in their head. And that's the same thing with genuine communication here. If we didn't communicate genuinely, then there would be a whole mess of miscommunications. There'd be a lot of anger, and we'd just fall apart. It'd be like Mean Girls. It would be awful. We wouldn't like it. And also, if there isn't genuine communication, you can't form strong, wholehearted emotional connections because you don't know what the other person is thinking, because you can't tell if they're just saying that to be proper or if they're saying it because they truly believe that. Before CSG, the idea that communities could enact change was present in my mind, but there was a really heavy disconnection between historical communities that had done things in the past, like the Civil Rights Movement, and communities that I was a part of. This is really ridiculous because in hipster St. Paul, all of the youths are either hipsters, artists, or some type of social activist. Therefore, all of my friends were either hipsters, artists, or social activists. And still in my head I thought, we're not going to do anything. But I still had a mental block about it for some reason. But while coming out to CSG, I got this really, really late epiphany that I could definitely cause change. And that any community had the potential to cause change, whether good or bad, or whether it's on a small scale or a large scale. And that any change was important, as long as those communities possessed the traits of a strong community. I saw us do trail work, cheer on powerful little middle school girls running along a trail, which was super cute. We worked at Preble Street, and I realized that even though these aren't massive things that I would usually associate with a large-scale change brought by community, they still showed power. They showed potential, that there's motivation to help solve problems. And that there's potential for people to become passionate enough about issues to do everything they can to fix them. And maybe someday on a bigger scale. I intend to use the values that I gained about the community in CSG, or that I gained from the community in CSG, to build up a stronger, more active community in my own city. One value that I came to hold is the importance of intersectionality and diversity in ideas and approaches to problem solving. This is partially because of post-adventure, where everything is always connected, and it's also partially because of the persuasive essay I wrote about environmental justice, where I realized that the social justice and environmental justice movements are heavily segmented against each other, or not against each other, but they aren't united. But they need to be, because there are so many issues that cross those lines, just like with anything else. I believe that these movements should work together, so one thing that I'm going to do when I get back is to make sure that I'm urging all of the activist communities to join together in solidarity. I'm also going to talk about whatever other issue I have on my mind nonstop, no matter what community I'm in, to spread awareness and passion about all of those other communities. I'm also going to use places like the Hancock Community Rec Center, where I'm on the youth council, to create platforms to talk about the current situations within the social justice movement. So currently a very big thing is the devaluation of Black lives, considering Ferguson, but we'd also probably want to talk about things like gender and class. And even though there are already open mics and art showings and community meetings, there aren't specific platforms aimed at talking about those issues. So when I get back, I can make sure that happens. I want to try to spark fierce passions in my community and use that ferocity to actually cause change. And I'm going to do it because CSG already showed me that it's totally possible.